I want to address Eric Holder because I think this man is a cancer in the body politic, as so many are in the Obama administration. There seems to be the suggestion by Eric Holder, among other things, that, well, let me put it to you this way. He seems to suggest that if you don't agree with him and Obama, at least generally, and that if your criticisms of Obama or him are harsh, then many of you, or at least some of you, are motivated by the most base kind of emotional, irrational hatred, racism. I don't remember Eric Holder speaking out for Clarence Thomas when he was under brutal assault. I don't remember Eric Holder speaking out for Michael Steele when he was under brutal assault. I don't remember Eric Holder speaking out for Condi Rice when she was smeared. I don't remember Eric Holder speaking out for Allen West when he was smeared by his opponent when he was running for Congress. I don't remember Eric Holder saying positive things about any black man or black woman, Republican, running for office or holding office, as a matter of fact. I don't. Maybe there's something out there that somebody can find, and if they do, it's the exception, not the rule. Eric Holder is a demagogue. Eric Holder is a coward. Eric Holder is a spoiled brat. Went to a great high school. I looked. Went to Columbia University, Columbia Law School. The man has been appointed to successively higher positions in the federal government. The man served in a huge, very successful law firm in Washington, D.C. I don't see where he's been up for the struggle. He spent some time at the NAACP, Legal Defense Fund. Big deal. After all, this isn't the 1950s and 60s. This is a very dangerous mentality that Eric Holder has and spews. Very dangerous. And it's un-American. One of the reasons why Martin Luther King is universally loved, or almost universally loved, is because he was not a race baiter. Is because he was not a racist. Is because he was a real civil rights leader. Because he really believed in a colorblind society. Race wasn't the first political tool in the drawer that he would pull out every time somebody disagreed with him, as this president does and this attorney general does. And I say this is dangerous because what it does, ladies and gentlemen, is it prevents a thinking people in a civil society from thinking. It paints with a broad brush. It whitewashes, if you will, serious issues of public policy. In some countries, with some people in government, it's taken to extremes. I'll give you an example. Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe. In the name of black people, he slaughters and tortures and impoverishes black people. Idi Amin, or Idi Amin Dada was his full name, a brutal dictator in Uganda, slaughtered hundreds of thousands in that beautiful country with those beautiful people in the name of black people. This ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood and the rest of them slaughter, torture in the most awful way Muslims in the name of Islam, fellow Muslims. And it's happened with whites. You look at Stalin, not with respect to race per se, but the balkanization. Castro, and of course Mao in China, in the name of the real paradise, radical egalitarianism. He is responsible for slaughtering 60 million Chinese. And so you see, when people are using race or religion or ethnicity or gender or what have you as a political tool, as the tool of the demagogue, it is the most base, poisonous type of thinking and speaking imaginable. And it's dangerous. It is extremely dangerous because it can get out of hand. Eric Holder is criticized strongly, virulently, not because of his race. Nobody cares about the man's race. But because he is corrupt, because he is obstructing, and because he is undermining some of the best aspects of this society in service to Obama, who's no different. And if Obama wasn't in the White House, and if it were Hillary Clinton, we'd be accused of being misogynist. Because that's the way it is. Eric Holder can trash Sarah Palin, as he did, and I'm going to get to some of these clips, Nobody will call him misogynist. Nobody will call him anti-woman. Nobody will call him anything. I am sick and tired of the left in this country, particularly the wealthy left and the powerful left, pretending that they're victims, pretending that we put upon them, and pretending that our motives are the motives of the old Democrat Party, of the slaveholders, of the segregationists. That's Eric Holder's party. That's Barack Obama's party. It's not my party. That's their history in that party. It's not our history in our party. This man, Eric Holder, is condemned because he should be condemned. This man, Eric Holder, helped arm the drug cartels and kingpins in Mexico that have led to the deaths of hundreds, if not thousands, of Mexicans. Not white Mexicans, Mexicans, as well as one of our heroic border agents in Fast and Furious. This man, Eric Holder, is obstructing a criminal investigation into the most outrageous scandal in modern American history, the IRS scandal, the targeting of individuals, the targeting of organizations because of their philosophies. It is one of the worst scandals in modern American history. Eric Holder, unlike his predecessors, Republicans and Democrats, refuses to step aside and appoint an independent special prosecutor, despite mounting evidence of criminality and corruption. He won't do it. Eric Holder and his department have lied to the United States Congress. Eric Holder and his department have obstructed investigations by the United States Congress. Eric Holder and his department have brought frivolous lawsuits against individuals and states. They've tried to harass individuals who exercise their free speech rights, like some guy who had a float in some parade, which I'll get to later. Eric Holder is the lawyer, the special pleader for the most abusive president, the most lawless president in modern American history, if not all American history. And then he goes on TV and he whines and he complains. People are attacking him and his client, the president, because of their race, when nobody I know is attacking them for their race at all. They abuse our laws, and they're going to continue to abuse our laws. They abuse our immigration laws, which is why we have absolute chaos on the southern border. They attack our First Amendment rights. They attack our Second Amendment rights. They attack our Fourth, Fifth, Ninth, and Tenth Amendment rights. And we're supposed to go quietly into the wilderness. They shake down one bank after another, one corporation after another. They settle these cases. They don't try these cases. Have you noticed? $7 billion here, $12 billion there. Meanwhile, it is they who have perpetuated the greatest frauds on the American people, from Obamacare to Dodd-Frank and everything in between, that are going to cost this nation trillions of dollars, which they justify with their lies and their cover-ups and their deceit. Now, why was Clarence Thomas attacked? Are those who attacked him racist? Michael Steele, those who attack him racist? Alan West, those who attack him racist? Isn't it interesting? We have a long list of black Republicans, a long list of Latino Republicans, a long list of female Republicans who are accused of the worst things, who are called the worst things, who are treated in the most outrageous ways. And nobody says it's due to racism. It's just, they don't measure up. They don't measure up to Eric Holder's standards and Barack Obama's standards and the standards of the press. Well, we need to stare this down, ladies and gentlemen. We need to fight this cancer that is spreading in our body politic. Because those who exercise power, those who make money, those who rule over us, Obama, Holder, and all the rest in this administration, pretend that they're the victims. Called democracy, but they can't tolerate it. So Eric Holder throws these charges out there. He's not very specific about who he's talking about, of course, so he can smear an entire people, that is, essentially anyone who disagrees with him or Obama, and then he'll step back and say, I didn't say everybody, I just said some people. But he just keeps throwing it out there, these political Molotov cocktails, just keeps throwing them out there. Well, according to Merriam-Webster online, the full definition of bigot, I'm quoting them, a person who is obstinately or intolerantly devoted to his or her own opinions and prejudices, especially one who regards or treats the members of a group as a racial or ethnic group with hatred and intolerance. Now, of course, it's not limited, ladies and gentlemen, to racial or ethnic groups. Be people with a particular philosophy or people in a particular party. And with that in mind, notice how careful I was to define it so that people who try to attack me later will have no legs to stand on. With this definition in mind, and the caveat I mentioned, Eric Holder's a bigot. I said Eric Holder's a bigot. And perhaps those who work with him and believe like him are bigots too. I mean, after all, this cuts both ways, doesn't it? Seems to me those who embrace this race-based argument, this endless racialism, without any widespread evidence, are the true bigots. And hence, Eric Holder has demonstrated he's a bigot, according to Merriam-Webster and the definition that I cite. So here he is on ABC's This Week with Pierre Thomas. Cut 6, go.
You've talked about the fact that you and the president are sometimes treated differently. Those were your words. What did you mean by that?
All right, let's stop right there. I was, as you know, chief of staff to an attorney general for many years in the Reagan administration, Attorney General Edwin Meese. Eric Holder has never been treated as disrespectfully as Attorney General Ed Meese was. Where they unleashed independent counsel to go after him and try and blunt him, not one of which ever came up with anything substantive, but it didn't matter. Where they sought to prevent him from being appointed Attorney General and then sought to prevent him from finishing his term. Hearing after hearing after hearing after hearing, when the Democrats took back the Senate and controlled the House, seeking to ruin his reputation and his character, one of the finest men I've ever known, one of the most ethical men I've ever known. Carl Levin, real piece of work, real piece of crap, and he wasn't alone. John Conyers, you know the list of horribles. Many of them are still up there. Eric Holder was never treated like him. Poor Eric Holder. Oh, woe is me, woe is me. This guy who's unleashed his civil rights division against innocent citizens. This guy who is politically motivated in most of his decisions. I'm not done with him. I'm not done with him. I'll be right back. You know, it really is amazing listening to these well-heeled, spoiled brats who pretend they're part of some civil rights movement or defending some civil rights movement. Obama was a community organizer. He wasn't part of any movement except this left-wing radical crackpot movement. But that's not what I mean. When you look at what went on in the 1960s, people beaten and killed in the streets for merely standing up for their unalienable rights. These men, of course, and thankfully have never experienced such a thing. They went to Ivy League schools. They have been living the American dream. And yet they act like they're part of some resistance movement when they're the status quo. And let me tell you something, Mr. Holder. What you're complaining about is governing, not racism. Governing. You and your boss don't know how to govern. You don't know how to get along with other parties. You don't know how to get along with people in your own party. Ronald Reagan had to go over the head of Tip O'Neill to get his tax cuts through. George W. Bush was treated like crap by the Democrats in Congress, often sabotaged. Bill Clinton was impeached. Nixon resigned. And woe is me. Obama can't get things done with the Republican Congress. When he had a supermajority Democrat Congress in his first 2 years, they rammed home bill after bill, including Obamacare, including Dodd-Frank. They didn't give a crap what the Republicans thought, did they? And they still don't, do they? The president has the mentality, and in fact, has been acting like an imperial president, like a mobster in many respects, and he's got his mob lawyer, Eric Holder. Has Eric Holder ever stood up to the president? No. Has Eric Holder ever defied the president? No. And yet Eric Holder is our attorney general, not the president's attorney general. He took an oath to uphold the Constitution, not to uphold every policy Obama makes him uphold. So here he is again. Cut 6, go.
You've talked about the fact that you and the president are sometimes treated differently. Those were your words. What did you mean by that?
Well, there's a certain level of vehemence, it seems to me, that's directed at me, directed at the president.
Yes,
People talk about taking their country back. I can't.
All right, stop. People talking about taking their country back. That's racist? When Howard Dean said it, was that racist? When Elizabeth Warren said it, was that racist? Taking your country back. Hey, jerk! We mean take the country back from big government leftists. You know exactly what we mean. Exactly what we mean. And we say what we mean. It's not confusing at all. We speak in what we call plain English. Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
Hearts, look into people's minds. Hold
on. He can't look into people's hearts and minds, but that doesn't stop him. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, I call him a bigot, under the definition I read from Merriam-Webster's dictionary. So he's confessing. It's not anyone in specific, necessarily. He can't look into their minds and hearts. But he knows that they're racist. He knows that when they oppose him and his president, his boss, that they must be racists. So in other words, when we attack Harry Reid, how does he explain that? Or Chuck Schumer, how does he explain that? Or Nancy Pelosi, how does he explain that? Or the liberals on the Supreme Court, how does he explain that? He's a bigot. Go ahead.
This president has been treated differently than others.
Now, Al Sharpton, when you gave that speech, said that he thought it was about race. Those were his words. Are they yours?
Now, there's a certain racial component to this for some people. I don't think this is is a main driver, but for some, there's a racial animus.
You see how he flops it on the table? Steps away, then steps closer, steps away, and steps closer. Demagogue. Flat out demagogue. Let's go to cut 8, Mr. Producer. Cut 8, go.
But there's still more we have to travel along this road so we get to the place that is consistent with our founding ideals. And I'm very optimistic that this country will get there.
Stop. Well, get where? What are you talking about? Rambling, mumbling on? Platitudes, generalities? Accuse people of racism as a bigot might? Well, get where? Let me explain something to you, Mr. Holder. And I would explain this to you regardless of your pigmentation. And I do it every night on this program. We're a very simple people, we conservatives. We who oppose what you're doing, what Obama's doing, even what the white members of the Obama administration are doing, and the white members of Congress are doing. We want our country back from the big centralized federal leviathan. We want our country back from the EPA. We want our country back from the IRS. We want our country back from the Department of Injustice and the Energy Department and the phony Education Department. We want our liberty back. We want our free will back. We want to make decisions about how we live. We want to make decisions about what our children eat. We want to make decisions about what we drive and the fuel we put in our cars. We want to make all those decisions and a trillion more without the heavy hand, the iron fist of government telling us what to do just because it claims it can. You get it? It's not about race. It's about liberty. It's about the individual. It's about our heritage. That's what the founders were about, Mr. Holder. Not about redistributing wealth. Not about alien philosophies imported from Europe in the name of Marx and others and then imposed on us. That's what we're about, Mr. Holder. And you use race because you know you'll get away with it, but not on this program. Let's go to cut 9, Mr. Producer. Go.
You used the phrase nation of cowards earlier. It sounds like you've shifted somewhat since the beginning of the administration.
No, I wouldn't walk away from that speech. I think we are still a nation that is too afraid to confront racial issues. We had the Sterling incident. You have what...
All right, stop. The Sterling incident? Ladies and gentlemen, look around the world. Look around the world. The racial issues, the ethnic issues, the religious issues. People slaughtering each other, torturing each other in the worst way, beheading each other. Look around the world. Ethnic groups doing it to the same people who are of their ethnic group. Religious groups doing it to the same people who are of their religious group. Just look at it. And this man says, look at the Sterling case. A billionaire who owned a basketball team who said a few outrageous words for which his team was taken away from him, for which he was banned from basketball. That's the example? That's the example that first comes to the mind of the Attorney General of the United States, which has nothing to do with any of us, which couldn't be any further from our lives? That's the example? And the rancher, he says. There's another example, he says. The rancher. That's the example? And this demonstrates what? The rise of racism in the country? Pathetic. This man is pathetic. Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
Rancher said, those are opportunities for us to engage with one another across the color line and talk about racial issues, and we too infrequently do that.
Well, we do it all the time, actually. We do it all the time. And in my view, we do it too much. You see, it serves the race baiters to have race at the forefront of everything we think and we do. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. They don't want to discuss it because they seek to ameliorate something. They throw it out there to divide us, to balkanize us. And this is what the Democrat Party has done since its founding, whether it's slavery or segregation or the civil rights movement. What would the Democrat Party do without racism? What would it do? What would the Democrat Party do without divide and conquer? Race, ethnicity, religion, genitalia. What would it do? What would it run on? What would it stand for? You see, it has to be a party constantly at war with the country. Constantly insisting of injustice, even where none exists. Turmoil. There must be turmoil for the Democrat Party to survive, even of its own making. There must be balkanization, whether it's based on income or age or race or anything else. This is what you hear out of the mouths of Obama and Reid and Pelosi and, yes, Eric Holder, because this is the fare of the Democrat Party. They don't believe in a United States of America. They really don't. And so we're a nation of cowards. Nation of cowards? You know, the men and women who fight our wars? Holder doesn't. Nation of cowards? The men and women in uniform protecting us in the streets? Is that a nation of cowards? The men and women who rush into burning houses? Is that a nation of cowards? You, the people of the United States, who get up every day, you work hard, you provide for your families, you pay confiscatory tax rates, you're harassed by your government, local, state, and federal, you're a coward? This man is a disgrace. That's exactly what he is. And he's the coward. He's the one who won't stand up to the president. He's the one who won't stand up to the radicals in his own party. He's the one who won't stand up to the race baiters. Because he is all those things. You know, Mr. Holder, when my conservative legal foundation, Landmark Legal Foundation, was representing black families in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, poor black families in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in order to fight the city and fight the teachers union and fight your former employer, the NAACP, on behalf of these families and their students for school choice. Where were you? Where were you, Mr. Holder, when your president shut down the school choice program in the District of Columbia, where almost all of the participants were poor or relatively poor black kids? Where are you, Eric Holder? Did you stand up and say, no, Mr. President? No, you didn't. You didn't do a damn thing. You didn't lift a finger. You want to discuss race? Let's discuss it. Meanwhile, when you were making a small fortune at a law firm in Washington, D.C., your firm was representing terrorists in Guantanamo Bay. So, yes, let's have this debate, Mr. Holder. Let's have it right now. Let's look at black unemployment under this administration. Let's look at black teenage unemployment under this administration. Let's look at all the minority kids that are being killed in Chicago and other places in this country because of your fecklessness as Attorney General, your poor priorities. Let's do it. Let's have the debate. Or who's the coward? Let me suggest it's you, as well as being a bigot. I'm ready to have this debate, Mr. Holder. You won't get it from a reporter with one of these big news outlets, but you will get it with somebody like me. And the Justice Department's a big place. I'm sure at least one of the hacks over there can hear this program. And you're welcome to come on. As a matter of fact, Mr. Producer, let us invite the Attorney General to come on and discuss race. We wouldn't want him to be a coward now, would we? And I've got a number of specific questions for our Attorney General on the subject of race. Maybe he can help us. And I'm not going to play any more of his clips, but he says there's no proof of voter fraud, trying to get certain groups not to vote. That's the reason for voter ID. That's the reason for voter ID? Is it also racism, ladies and gentlemen, to force people to show their ID to get on airplanes, to buy a six-pack of beer, to buy cigarettes in this country, or to enter the United States Department of Justice, and the fourth floor, the fifth floor, where the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General reside? Is that racism? Is it racism to require an ID to go to a presidential event, to get into the Capitol building? Is that racism too? What a schmuck. We have attempted today to get a hold of Eric Holder, to have him on the program, to debate me on the issue of race. This isn't a game. It's not intended to be controversial or anything of the sort. This is a big show with many, many millions of people, and Eric Holder would have a huge format to debate the lowly me about race. Mr. Producer, open your microphone. Tell everybody your efforts. That you made a number of contacts today, and nobody responded at all. Who did you contact?
Correct. I tried contacting Eric Holder's director, deputy director, and press secretary. Mm-hmm. And I am waiting for them to get back to me. We're eagerly waiting.
Hours ago, correct?
Oh, yeah. 5-6 hours ago.
We announced it on the air that I wanted to talk to him, debate him. Also, one of his aides is what, a former Schumer spokesidiot?
His director is a former Schumer press spokesman.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you, Rich. So we have made every effort to lend this format to Eric Holder to talk with me about race. Therefore, Eric Holder has to be certified as a coward by his own term, by his own meaning. Way back, February 18, 2009, he said this, cut 9, go.
Though this nation has proudly thought of itself as a ethnic melting pot, in things racial, we have always been, and we, I believe, continue to be, in too many ways, essentially a nation of cowards. Though race-related issues continue to occupy a significant portion of our political discussion, and though there remain many unresolved racial issues in this nation, we, average Americans, simply do not talk enough with each other about things racial. It is an issue that we have never been at ease with, and given our nation's history, this is in some ways understandable.
Well, it's understandable, except you've been invited. We would have spent an hour. This is a national town hall format. I would have given you equal time. We could have debated race. We could have debated your career and your record with respect to race. My career and my record with respect to race, if you'd like. We could debate the history of the Democrat and Republican parties, your association with Al Sharpton, and mine not. We could have debated a lot of things, Mr. Holder. You want to discuss these things, but you really don't. You only want to talk to so-called reporters who are throwing you softballs, to groups who will applaud you like clapping seals no matter what you say. You control your format, you control your audience, you control your reporters, and I wanted to have you on here and debate you. You of Columbia College, Columbia Law School, brilliant, much, much smarter than I have no doubt about it. You who were with a big, powerful law firm in Washington, D.C., former U.S. attorney, former Superior Court judge, former this, former that. Quite a life for somebody who's been so thoroughly discriminated against. But you will not come on the program. Why? Because you're a coward. By your own definition, you're a coward. I want to have this debate with the Attorney General of the United States. I served for an Attorney General of the United States. I was an Associate Deputy Attorney General of the United States. I'd be more than happy. So we will leave this offer open to Mr. Holder. If he can have the courage to show up here and stop being the coward, by his own definition, that he is. So I wanted to make that clear. That's number one.